So for tonight, you don't need anything. Maybe a couple of blocks. If you have blocks nearby, those are always good to have somewhere near the front of the mat. And a blanket as per usual if you want to sit up on a blanket. But otherwise, you don't need anything else. Actually, I lied. You will need something towards the end of the class. Something to lift your bum off the ground for a reclined bridge pose. So either a block or a folded up blanket or a cushion or something like that. So anything that you can use for that. Hi guys, just joining us. I'm glad you made it in. Okay, I'll just give it another minute. Hey Billy. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. We're actually going to get started laying down on our backs today. So come lay all the way down on your back and knees bent. Take your feet as wide as the mat, knees bent, and then let the knees fall in towards each other. So you can do whatever's comfortable with your arms for the beginning. Arms out to the side, one hand heart, one hand belly. You figure out what's comfortable for you. Tonight we're focusing on the legs, so just make sure feet as wide as the mat, knees knock in towards the center. Beautiful. I'm just starting working into that fascia on the outside of the legs. And then once you get there, allow the eyes to close and start to bring your attention to the present moment. So allow the breath to deepen a little bit. And just allow yourself to settle in to the here and now. So most of you probably know that yesterday, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, was the winter solstice. And so that's the longest night of the year. When you live as far north as I do in Norway, you appreciate when the longest night has passed and the days start to get longer again. And we're going to be working this idea of the solstice this evening because the solstice is the balance of dark and light. It's when that balance tips, the scales tip, and the sun begins its return journey, promising new growth, new life, new opportunities, and most importantly, a return of the light. And in ancient times, people feared the darkness. They feared the winter because they never knew if the light was coming back. And that's a scary thought that we still experience in our lives today. And what would happen if the light weren't to return? And in the darkness, it's easy to lose that guiding light. It's easy to lose your direction. When you lose the light, you lose the direction, you lose everything that goes along with it, hopes of new growth, of change. And at certain periods of our lives, we go through these tunnels of darkness. It doesn't necessarily have to be in winter, but we go through these tunnels of darkness within our lives. And when times are tough, it seems like there's nothing but darkness. And we fear that the light may never return. But just know that there's always light. Even when we can't see it, even in the darkest times of our lives, there's always light within, even when it's hidden away. So our offering today in our practice is to look for that light. So not only on the mat, in looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, maybe in a pose that's a little bit challenging, a little bit difficult, and we have a couple of those this evening, but also off of the mat. So where in your life is there darkness? Where are you lost? Why can you not see the light at the end of that tunnel? So where can we trust the light will return? That we will not forever be surrounded by darkness. And that whatever that hard time in our life is that is enveloping us with what seems like never-ending light will one day give way to the return of the sun, to the return of warmth, to the return of new hope, new growth, and light. So before we move into our first poses for this evening, I'd like to read a poem to you from one of my favorite authors, Morgan Harper Nichols. And she writes, "Keep looking for where the light pours in. Even on the days when you feel uncertain, keep looking again and again. And let that light remind you of the hope within you. Let it remind you that no matter what happens, you're free to start again. The same light that you see in others shines within you." So my question as we move through our practice together today is, what can you do to let that light shine forth? To let the darkness be dispelled and that light that's hidden within you come to the surface. So bring both hands to the heart, so one on top of the other. And just take a couple of deep, deep breaths into the space beneath your hands. And visualize there just a tiny flame, your hidden light, always burning, always there within you. And with every inhale, feel that flame grow a tiny bit brighter. And keep that visualization with you as we move through these poses this evening. So with every inhale, visualize that flame, that light within your heart space, growing in intensity, growing in brightness, illuminating everything around you. So slowly start to take both legs long. So just stretch both legs out in front of you. And then on your next inhale, bend the right knee and bring the knee into the chest and interlace the fingers around the front of the shin. And gently hug the knee in. We don't want to like yank it towards our body, but just gently hug the knee in. And maybe rock the leg a little from side to side, just finding any little stuck spots, any parts of tension. You can circle the ankle a few times. And then find some stillness here. So find the angle of the leg into the chest that's most comfortable for you today. And begin some deep breaths into that right leg. And then using your left hand to hold the front of that right shin, you can take your right arm out to the side, somewhere around shoulder height, palm face up, palm face down, you can choose. And use your left hand to pull your right knee over towards the left. So we're just coming into a sort of simple reclined twist. If this variation doesn't work for you, feel free to move into a variation that does. That right knee is floating, it's uncomfortable, you can put a blanket or a block underneath it. And then maybe your gaze rolls towards the right hand. And here in the first twist for today, can you make sure that you can still breathe? And you can still breathe deep enough that you're making that little flame grow a tiny bit brighter every inhale. So as I mentioned at the beginning of class, we're going to be working with the legs this evening. So we're going to be working with pretty much 360-degree surrounding of the legs. So the front, the back, the sides, the outside, the inside, the feet, everything that has to do with the lower body, essentially. We spend a lot of our times sat, especially if you have an office job, or you drive a lot, or you're a teacher, things like that. We tend to be sat quite a lot, and sat in hip flexions and knees coming in towards the chest, and then knees bent. And we rarely move in the opposite direction to the one we spend most of our time in. So we're going to try and use some of these poses this evening to sort of get into the opposite movement of the body. Maybe release some things that got a little bit stuck, and hopefully just make the legs feel a little bit better by the end of it. So we'll take a couple more deep breaths on this side. Feeling the warmth of that light in your heart space. And in yoga, that heart space is called Hridaya, and it's said to be the place in the physical body in which the soul resides. So it's important for us to keep that little flame alive within that heart space. Give our soul a little bit of light within us. And on your next inhale, you can use that left hand to push your right knee back up to center. Bring that right knee into the chest again. Hug it in just for a breath. Maybe rock a little side to side if that feels good. And then you can take the right leg long to meet the left and just pause there. So mini Shavasana. And just notice if there's any difference between the left side, the right side, the legs. And the next inhale, we'll switch to the other side. So bend the left knee, bring the left knee into the chest. Fingers interlaced around the front of that shin. Take any little movements you need, checking out how this side of the body feels. Again, you can circle the ankle a few times, moving the knee from side to side. And then finding a place of stillness. And from here, we'll move into the twist. So you can take the left arm out to the side at shoulder height, whatever works for you. And use that right hand to gently guide the left knee over to the side. Again, a block or a blanket under that knee if it's floating and it's uncomfortable. Maybe gaze goes towards that extended hand. And 2 more deep breaths on this side. And start to bring the knee back up towards center. Use both hands to hug that knee in, give it a little squeeze into the chest. Maybe a little rock side to side. And then once again, both legs long. Checking in with how the legs feel, especially the outside of the legs. And as you feel ready, we're going to roll over onto our stomachs and then make our way to a wide-legged child's pose. So you can take your time to get there, no rush. So just for a few breaths, I'm not going to hang out here too long in child's pose, just a quick visit. Take the knees wide, toes together, and then torso down towards the mat. Arms can be wherever is comfortable, maybe a little pillow with the hands, head resting on the palms, maybe arms out front or arms alongside the legs, you choose. You can always have a blanket between the backs of the thighs and the backs of the calves. And just a few breaths here in child's pose. So we're about to move into a pose that for some of you may seem like a never-ending tunnel of darkness. So as we enter into this pose, I invite you to look for the light. So where in these tough situations that seem to be never ending, where is the light hiding? Not only the light within you, but the light around you. It's always there, even in those dark times. We just have to look for it. And maybe in these tough poses, concentrating on your inhales and your exhales, visualizing that flame at Hridaya, your heart space, growing in intensity with every inhale. Maybe that can be your focus to get you through that tunnel of darkness. And so we can move into a little dark pose for this evening. So lift the torso up, come to sit on the heels, and then move the knees towards each other. So sort of sat in Sensei pose, Vajrasana Thunderbolt. And then lean forward to the point that you can lift your bum up off the heels and tuck your toes under. And I love you guys, so please don't hate me for making you do this pose. There's a reason. Lift the toes, tuck the toes under, and then start to sit the bum back on the heels. If you get to here and you're like, oh, hell no, walk your torso forward, take some of the weight off the feet. If it's available to you and it doesn't make you want to scream, you can start sitting the heels on the bum on the heels, lifting the hands off the mat. Maybe torso comes all the way upright. Whichever variation you're in, start to breathe very deeply, sending those inhales down into the feet. Beautiful, guys. You can do whatever's comfortable with your hands. If your hands are off the mat, wherever is comfortable for the hands to be, it works. And if you get into a place where your feet are shouting at you, just start leaning the torso forward, hands back to the mat, just to take some of the weight away from the feet. And so the reason we're doing this pose is we have something called fascia. It's connective tissue. It's essentially the wrapping of our entire insides. It's around muscles, it's around nerves, it's around organs everywhere. And we have it on the bottom of our feet. And when that fascia is tight, it can pull on the back of our legs, make everything on the back of our legs really tight. So working into this pose, It's such a great way to access the legs and to work into the connective tissue on the back of the legs. So can you focus on your breath? Focus on those inhales. And visualize the light at the end of this slightly uncomfortable tunnel. We've got 3 more really deep breaths here. Awesome job, guys. At the end of your 3rd breath, start to lift the torso forward again. Walk the hands out in front of you so that your bum lifts up off the heels. Untuck the toes and then just sit back on your heels again, just for a couple of breaths. And see how that feels. If this is uncomfortable, you can also grab a block and shove it under your tushy and sit up on a block. But just notice the difference of having the toes tucked versus untucked. And we've got 1 more pose here, sat up on our heels. We're going to take our feet in the opposite direction. So staying as you are, you can do this if you're sat on the block as well. Put your hands on the mat, fingertips on the mat, either side of your legs. And then start to lean backwards. Maybe have to walk your fingers back so that you can lift your knees up. So we're stretching the front of the ankles, stretching the front of the feet. If this is kind of wobbly, you can always grab a couple of blocks and shove blocks under your knees. So just stretching along the front here. We're not going to stay here super long. Can you breathe into the front of the ankles? So sort of targeting with these poses, we're targeting areas of the lower body that normally doesn't get too much love. The feet, the ankles. We do a lot of quad stuff, a lot of hamstring stuff if we go to the gym. We don't do too much feet and ankle. And they're the foundation of everything. You know, they're the very thing touching the earth. So we need them to be strong. We need them to be supple. We need them to be supportive. 2 more deep breaths. And there is a light at the end of this pose. As you finish the final exhale, gently start to shift your weight forward again. No sudden movements. Lean into your hands so that you can come to all fours. And then just take the right leg straight out behind you, ball of the foot on the mat, and just rock back and forwards a little bit. You're just stretching out the back of that leg after we've been sat on it essentially for a few minutes. And then switch sides. Take the left leg out behind you, ball of the foot on the mat, rocking backwards and forwards. Beautiful job, guys. We're going to make our way into a pose that requires us to be on our knees for a few minutes. So if you know that you have knee sensitivity or a thin mat, you can grab a blanket and put it somewhere in the middle of your mat. I'm just going to turn so that you guys can see me and so that I don't run into the wall. But we're going to start in all fours. So bum over knees, shoulders over wrists. And then take the right foot out to the right. So you see my leg is at a diagonal. Sole of the right foot is on the mat. It's not pointing out to the side. And then my toes are pointing straight forward. So toes pointing in the same direction as my hands. Option 1 is to stay right here. So this is a yin variation of a gate pose, working into the inside of our right thigh. If you'd like to go a little further, option 2, walk the hands forward, maybe lowering down to the forearms. So then we're adding in part of Anahata puppy pose. And then option 3 would be maybe make a little pillow, lower your forehead down, either to the mat or to your hands. So find the variation that's going to work for you. Yes. Nice, guys. And then find that stillness. As we stay here for a while, you may find that the edge you want to stop at may change. So maybe after a few breaths, you can come down to your forearms, or maybe you find that's too much and you need to back out a little bit and come back up to the palms. Just listen to whatever the body is telling you. Three more deep breaths. Yeah. If you're down on your forearms, you can start making your way back up. So we all meet in that funky variation of gate pose. And then next exhale, slowly step the right knee to meet the left. Woo, and then pause here in tabletop. You can untuck the toes behind you and become aware of any difference in sensation between right hip, left hip, especially on that inner groin area. The adductors, adductors, those are the muscles that bring the legs together. And then we're going to move into the opposite side. So take that left leg out to the side, sole of the left foot on the mat, toes point in the same direction as the hands. See how it feels here on the hands. That's option one, to stay upright. Option two, start walking the hands a few inches out in front of you, maybe down onto the forearms. Maybe head comes all the way down. Find your variation, knowing that this side may be completely different from the previous side. So here we're getting into the inner groin. We're also getting into the outer ankle. You see your foot is turned in slightly compared to the rest of the leg. It's inversion of the ankle. So we're getting into a few different areas, also getting into the bum, the lovely muscles and connective tissue on the back of the body. And if you've lowered the torso down towards the floor, we're getting into the spine as well, into the back. And 3 more deep breaths on this side. Then down on the forearms, come back up to your palms. And the next exhale, slowly start to bring left knee to meet right knee. And pause again in tabletop. And just taking stock of how everything feels. If your body's craving it, you can take a few cat-cows. So exhale, allow the belly to drop slightly towards the floor, lift the tailbone and the head. And then round the spine, push the floor away. Maybe it feels better to stay in stillness, in which case stay completely still. And we're going to keep working into the hip socket. So come back to a still all four pose. So come back to tabletop, bum over knees, shoulders over wrists. Walk the right hand in towards the center of the mat so that you can step right foot to the outside of the right hand. So we're making our way into dragon. You can have those blocks nearby. And option one is to stay here upright, dragon. So hands on the inside of that front foot. And I'm going to leave it up to you how close you want that back knee to the front foot. You can have it relatively close. I have it at about the back knee at about a 90-degree angle, or you can tuck the back toes and start walking that back knee further back. This is going to take it a little bit deeper into the front of that left hip. Option to stay upright on the fingers, on the hands, or grab those blocks, come down to forearms, or maybe forearms all the way down to the mat. So you figure out what's going to work for you today. And this again might be one of those poses that seems like a never-ending tunnel of darkness to you. And if that's the case, can you focus on your inhales, visualizing that little flame at your heart center, growing a little bit brighter with each breath in. And give your mind something to focus on other than the darkness. If you're down on your forearms, make your way back up to your palms. So we'll all meet in regular dragon. And just for a moment, we're going to shift our hips back into half splits pose. So start walking your hands back. Work towards straightening that front leg. It does not need to straighten. The sole of the front foot comes off the mat, toes point up towards the ceiling, and hip points point both towards the front of the room. So hip points is square. For a lot of us, that means we're going to have to bring the right hip back, left hip forward. And then breathe deep into the back of that right leg. We're going to be here for about a minute. It's a pretty active pose, so we're not going to hang out too long. But breathe into that connective tissue on the back of the right leg with the toes pointing up towards the ceiling. We're getting into that fascia again on the bottom of the right foot. And start walking the hands forward, bending back into that right knee. Plant both palms on the mat and then wiggle that right foot out so you can step right knee to meet left. We're back in tabletop. Pause for a couple of breaths. Checking in with the difference between right and left. And then we'll move into the other side. So walk the left hand in towards the center of the mat so that you can step left foot to the outside. Again, we arrive in our regular version of dragon, so you can stay here. Or you can tuck those back toes under and start shifting that right knee further out behind you, taking it deeper into the groin. And you can choose to stay upright on the hands, forearms on blocks, forearm on the mat. Figure out what works for you. And then breathe into dragon on this side. Again, if you're finding it hard to be still in what can seem like unending darkness, can you focus on that little flame, the light within you? It sometimes gets hidden, but it's always there. And usually, that heart space is seen as green. That's the color of the heart within yoga, or at least the color of the energetic heart. But that flame could be any color that you want to imagine it to be. So if you want a roaring, bright red flame at your heart center, then go ahead. If you'd like a calm, cooling blue flame glowing at Hidraya, then that's cool too. Couple more breaths here in dragon on this side. And dragon is one of those great poses where we're working into both legs at the same time. So the front of the back leg, the back of the front leg, not to be too confusing. If you're down on your forearms, you can make your way back up to dragon, back up to the palms of the hands. And then again, we're going to exit via half splits pose. So start walking the bum back, the hands back, until bum ends up aligned over that back knee. Left foot comes off the mat, so left toes point up towards the ceiling. And you can have hands on the inside of the front leg or hands on either side of the front leg, whatever works for you. And then pull that left hip back until it's level with the right hip. So your hips are square to the front of the mat. So we have this connective tissue all over our body. There's a big swath of it along our back body, all connected. And so a lot of times when we think we have tight hamstrings, it's not the hamstrings at all, it's this connective tissue. So hanging out in these kind of poses for yin lengths of time can really help with our flexibility within our legs and take away some of that limit that we normally blame our hamstrings for. A couple more breaths here. And then start walking the torso and the hands forward again, bending into that front knee. And then wiggle the left foot out to the side so that you can step left knee to meet right. And a few breaths again in tabletop. Cat-cow is always there if you'd like a little movement. And tabletop is there if you'd like a little stillness. Just check in with the hips and see how everything is feeling. If you're taking cat-cow, just take a couple more rounds and then meet us in stillness. And then we're going to come to sit down on our bum. So however you want to get there, I'll leave it up to you. If you just want to lean over to one side. I'm going to make our way into something called woven shoelace. And if you have socks on, you may want to take your socks off. You can try it with socks on. I haven't ever tried it, so let's see what you think. Take both legs long, just to begin with. Bend the right knee, and then we're going to cross the right knee to stack on top of the left. So this is our shoelace pose that we normally do in yin. If this top knee is stuck up in the air, you can shove something underneath it. And here comes the woven bit. So this is our half shoelace. You're now going to take your left fingers and interlace them in between the toes. So basically one finger in between each toe. Yes, that's it, guys. Nice. So it's kind of like you're getting a pedicure when they put those toe spreaders in, and then just put the left foot back down, or the right foot back down with the left hand holding it. Right knee can just left. Right hand, woo, not able to talk anymore. Right hand can just rest gently on the right knee. Sit up tall and close your eyes. And then again, awareness back to the inhales. So here we're working into that fascia that I mentioned. We have that connective tissue on the bottom of our foot, and it's not just the bottom of the foot, it goes all the way into each and every toe. So here we're helping stretch that fascia out to the side. Get a little space between the toes. You may also start to feel it in the fingers, because unless you're a piano player, there's probably not much time we spend with our fingers really wide apart like this. So it's a buy one, get one free for the fascia of the feet and all of the itty bitty muscles and tissues of the hands. We're also getting into the back of the left leg, the hip of the right leg. This is a great all-round pose. Couple more deep breaths. And release the weave. So get your fingers out from between your toes. Lean back into the hands, so hands on the mat behind you, and then take both legs out long. And then take all your attention to your feet, to your toes. And see, does anything feel different left versus right foot? Does it feel like I got a really good pedicure on my right foot? And then we'll move into the other side. So come to sit upright again. Right leg stays long out in front of you. Bend the left knee and then stack knees. Again, block, blanket in between the knees is great. Left hand rests gently on left knee. And then we're going to shake hands with our left foot with our right hand. So stick those fingers, one finger in between each toe. And left foot resting gently on the mat, intertwined with the right hand. And close your eyes. Come back to the breath. And let your hand and your foot do that little thing over there to the side. You can slowly let the love fest between the hand and the foot release. And wiggle your fingers free from the toes. Take the hands on the mat behind you again, lean back, release both legs. And see how both feet feel. So maybe windshield wiper the feet, fluffing them backwards and forwards. You can stretch out through the toes and let them relax. Just noticing any changes that may have shifted and come about in the feet. For most of us, that fascia tends to be super tight. And so these kind of exercises, if we're not used to them, can cause a lot of physical changes in our bodies. And then we're going to make our way, when you're ready, down onto our backs. We're going to come into a supported bridge pose. So this is what I said you guys needed some form of prop for. So if you have one of these big bolsters, that's one of my favorite things to use. Otherwise, you can have a block. If you have kind of a hard block like I do, I would recommend a block with a blanket over the top of it, just so that that isn't pressing into your sacrum quite so much. So you can either lay down and then put the block underneath you once you're laid down, or you can have the block in place and then go ahead and lay down. But the block or the prop is essentially going to go into your sacrum, which is that triangular bone at the bottom of the spine here, top of the pelvis. So I'm going to stick my sacrum on it and then come lay down. So your back is on the mat. You can take your arms out at shoulder height. And to begin with, have the knees bent, knees pointing up towards the ceiling, soles of the foot on the floor. And see how this feels for you. Option 1 is to stay right here. Option 2, if you'd like to take it into the legs, is to start walking the feet away from your bum. And once you get to a point that you're like, oh yeah, that's good, especially in these hip flexors on the front of the body, then you stay there. If it's available to you and comfortable in your body, you can walk the feet all the way out until your heels rest on the mat. So now we're stretching the connective tissue on the entire front side of the body. And if you'd like to take it one step further, you can take the arms overhead, either straight out overhead or maybe opposite wrist grabs opposite wrist, or opposite hand grabs opposite elbow. So find what's going to work for you. Find where you can be comfortable. As we spend a few moments here in this supported bridge pose, I'd like to read you some words from Nikki Giovanni. And they write, "Oh, what a gift it is to know that there is more to us and more to life beyond that which is seen. That even when the only thing we can remember about yesterday was the shadow-filled, starless, dark valley, that valley was still part of a larger landscape, even if we couldn't see it at the time. And perhaps there was beauty in the fact that we made it through what we thought we never could make it through. Perhaps this is something good we can hold on to as we carry on towards the unknown. What if we made room for stories that held not only shadows, but held light? It is our stories that give light to the future. So what in your life, if you made room for stories that held not only shadows, not only darkness, but held light? What might those stories say about you? And you have the option, if you'd like to stay in this supported bridge pose instead of moving into Shavasana. However, if you'd like to move into Shavasana, if you have your arms overhead, you can lower them back down to the sides. Lift your hips up just enough to scoot that prop out from underneath you. And then lower the hips back down to the mat. You can grab blankets, eye pillows, whatever you need to be comfortable. If you have a bolster or blocks that you want to put under your knees, that works beautifully as well. So find that place where you can be comfortable for a few minutes. And then as you arrive, get out any wriggles. So adjusting any clothing, adjusting your blanket, your hair. Start turning the attention back towards the breath and back to that little flame of light at the heart center. So together we'll take 2 falling out breaths, and with every inhale, visualize that little flame glowing even brighter, whatever color your flame may be. So collectively, we inhale through the nose. Exhale, sigh it out the mouth. We'll take one more like that. Inhale through the nose. See that light growing lighter and brighter. And exhale, sigh it out. And then let go of everything. Let go of controlling the breath. Let go of anything you're holding on to physically, mentally, emotionally, and settle in for a few moments of quiet darkness in Shavasana. And slowly begin to deepen that breath. Seeing that little flame flicker with every inhale. And start wiggling the fingers and toes. Circling the wrists and ankles. And if you're feeling like you want to stay exactly where you are, then stay right there in Shavasana. And if you're coming out with me, then you can take arms overhead and take a full body stretch. And then bring the knees into the chest, wrap the arms around the knees, and give yourself a nice big hug. You can roll over to your right side, hang out there for a few breaths. Just letting energy of the practice settle. The left side of the body is the lunar, calming side. So by rolling to the right, we're switching on that left side of the body and staying in that calm zone we've hopefully created through our practice. And you can gently make your way up to sit, any comfortable seat of your choice. And once you get there, close the eyes and bring one hand to the heart, the other hand on top. So coming back to that heart space, to Hridaya. And keep the visualization of that little flame beneath your hands as you move from class today. And know that the light that shines on the most beautiful places on earth shines on you too. And the light that shines within the most beautiful places on earth shines within you too, even if you can't always see it. Bring your hands together in prayer and take the knuckles of your thumbs to your third eye, the center of the forehead. It's with grace and gratitude that the light in me honors and bows to the ever-present light within you. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste. Thank you. As always, guys, thank you so much for practicing with me. And I do apologize once again for those of you who did not get the class email in time. Those of you here, and then those of you who are having to watch on replay. So I'll double check what happened there. But thank you, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Have a lovely rest of your week, and have a lovely Christmas, because next time I see some of you, it will be after Christmas. So have a lovely, lovely Christmas, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, guys.